but you'd rather make it hard. Loving you is like a battle, and we both end up with scars. Tell me who I have.
Hey guys, welcome to Turkish Delight Sev podcast. Your host for today is Turkish Delight Sev, myself. Today we are going to be talking about domestic abuse. So, guys, what is your definition of domestic abuse? So, guys, my definition of domestic abuse, actually, it's really interesting because before I was aware, shall I say, of domestic abuse, I always believed that domestic abuse was domestic violence. So it was physical. That's all I ever knew. So growing up, all I ever thought was when somebody's being, given domestic abuse, it's, they're hitting me or they're, I don't know, even maybe they're forcefully getting me to do something I don't want to do, whether it's like physically, sexually, whatnot, but that was my kind of take on it, on domestic abuse. And then obviously growing up and then realising, but I only realised this through some of my few experiences where I've dated and met different types of people, and then I've realised actually domestic abuse don't just come physically. Actually, it's emotional abuse. Financial, that's another one that I realised. I didn't even realise how people can actually use money to manipulate you. And then, obviously the general one, which is sexual abuse. So, emotional, domestic abuse for me then, it covers everything. So emotional, physical, sexual, and financial. So that's really how I would just define domestic abuse. When I hear it, it comes in all sorts of forms, not just one. So what do you guys like? What's your opinion on it?
Would you like me to go next?
Yeah.
I really don't mind. For me, honestly, as you said before, domestic abuse, it's quite wide, okay? For me, experiencing domestic abuse over 30 odd years ago, even then I didn't realise that I wasn't actually a victim of domestic abuse only, but also domestic violence, okay? Because it was physical, okay? However, when you don't recognise it, it doesn't mean anything to you. It didn't mean anything to me until I left the abusive situation and started to work with victims of abuse. And then I learned that domestic abuse is something that can take place. It's an act that can be very physical, very abusive, as you said earlier, Seth, very emotional. It can also affect your mental health, your stability, your self-esteem. Yes, financial, only just saying to a client a few weeks ago, why didn't you come and see me? And you could have called me, because I often say as a domestic violence advisor in my role, things happen, you might not be able to make this contact, but it's your contact. It's time for you to come and use that voice, and as a professional, then I can make the links into signposting you. So I actually got her, and she sat in front of me with tears in her eyes, and I sort of said to her, like, so why don't you come to me? Why don't you phone me? She said, I couldn't call you. I said, well, you've got my number. And then she looked at me, and her eyes just filled with tears, and she just says, well, he took my chip out of my phone.
That's some of my sister.
He took my chip out of my phone, okay? So again, going back to what you said about financial, okay? And it's also another way that when you allow that other person to have that power over you, it affects you in every aspect of your life. Even to travel, yes, you need to travel, but we're all very much aware that now in London, because this is where I live, you have to have this particular Oyster card to travel. Why didn't you come on the bus to me? You know, come to the office and we could have used a little kitty money.
Yeah.
She said he took my Oyster card.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Okay.
So that's the level of abuse. Yeah, and it has no physical impact to it, but it's still a form of abuse.
Okay, yeah.
Okay?
So you would say it's like controlling
It's
behaviour?
controlled behaviour in an environment which we know the word domestic means it begins in the home. But let's not be alarmed by that statement, because we now know from, you know, evidence of research and homicide and statistics that it's a behaviour and an act that is now displayed outside of the home,
Yeah.
in the local communities. So that's my full understanding of domestic abuse.
For me personally, it's any type of threat that you could feel in a household. You know, so as you guys said, it could be emotional, it could be physical, but if you feel threatened to the extent where you feel this is becoming too much kind of thing, yeah. But at the same time, it happens to all of us. When you think, like, we all, it might not be the extent to where I would call someone to ask for help or anything, but you still live with people and people live with their own problems, and at the same time, living together sometimes can cause a bit of abuse. It could be a verbal abuse, it could be something small, but then it depends, like, you know? So I haven't personally been through anything where I thought, you know what, this is real domestic abuse, but obviously you all have problems with each other, brothers, sisters, you fall out here and there, but I think those people that do go through domestic abuse should speak about it and communicate and try to share their feelings and express it.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's my definition really, a threat.
It's a
Once
threat.
it becomes a threat.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that's a big thing, right? When you first when you first sent me the information about domestic abuse, I think one thing that most people forget is that there's always someone who's actually giving it, and then there's someone who's receiving it. Most of the time, everyone's gonna look at the person receiving it, but what we forget is how did the person giving it actually acquire it to pass it on. Do you understand me? So I think when you look at domestic abuse, let's say look at relationships between couples alone, there's always someone who's willing to define love in a way of where there's a borderline between submission and being a walkover, and that's where I think domestic abuse actually kicks in. Okay, so from a story I know, okay, it was, I love him so much, I gotta make him happy. Because we live in a society where, let's be frank, stability, long-term relationships, they don't technically kind of exist. Because if you're not happy here, you move on. And some people become borderline in need of that love that they're gonna take it on. So when you ask someone like me, what is domestic abuse, what I'm gonna say to you is, domestic abuse is someone getting to the point where they have to give what they think the receiver needs to keep them both going, but disregarding the effect, as in the negative effects that it actually brings upon each one of them. Because should the receiver become strong one day and walk off, they're both damaged and they're taking the damage elsewhere. Do you understand? That's why they need sort of like professionals, or most people in domestic abusive relationships tend to be just lost within their own world, you know, and they forget that they need a slightly wider circle so they're not always like induced all the time. And with the more of that, the more, you know, domestic abuse, so like it kicks off even more, to the point where silly things like the plate crashes on the floor, whether it's the guy or the lady flips because the plate has gone up, but it came from shut up bitch, and it was like whoa, you know what, I'll allow it because I hear that on the streets, I hear it everywhere, it's completely fine. So when he walks in and he retaliates, or she walks in and she retaliates at the plate, you're thinking, I allowed that before, so you know what, that plate did make noise. It makes sense that they come at me like this. You know, so that's what I said to you. My take on domestic abuse is coming from the giver and the receiver, accepting to a certain point that they all forget about the effect of it. And then us watching it from the bedside view, we'll call it abuse.
Okay, interesting.
I think, can I just add there, what you're sort of describing to me is some of the work that I do with the victims of abuse, and we talk about introducing the power of the wheel of control, okay? And it's something that stems from something known as the Duluth wheel of power and control. For those of you who are familiar with domestic abuse and domestic violence, you will know that it is all based on a power element, okay? Unfortunately, we don't get up and go out of our way to say to someone, abuse me. But at some stage, we become, I would guess, weak and allow for certain behaviours to happen. And if over a time we don't address those behaviours, okay, we might not be able to stop it, but you know, addressing it is a way of trying to sort of reduce it. And hopefully in the end, the impact will be to stop it. But let's face it, we haven't got that long here to talk about that, because if that was the case, we wouldn't be raising awareness time and time, year in, year out, on the effects and the impact of abuse, never mind the violence.
Yeah, I agree with you very well on that, because it's like this, right? Domestic. When you say domestic, obviously it's not anything going on out there, you know, and what happens indoors is supposed to stay indoors, okay? But at the same time, I always find this very, very interesting, because at the start of every relationship,
do you feel that you would be able to notice the red flags at the beginning of a relationship, like moving forward?
At the beginning of every relationship, you know, it is always happy, happy, happy. You know, to the point that, you know, if I budge Sev a little bit, you know, at the start, she's gonna think that's cute, you know. But here's a real facts, okay? Most domestic abuse start from right then, because when you're so happy at that point, you forget to ask the right questions, okay? Some people get offended when you ask them, do you know what actually happened in the last relationship? Do you know what? They just didn't love me enough. You know, they didn't do this enough. No, do you know what? Tell me exactly what happened. What was like a day-to-day like? Because that relationship with that person is more or less the same relationship you're getting with me. It's like, what went wrong? I need to know what went wrong. So as a man or real men, they like to find solutions to problems. Do you understand? So if I went into a relationship the first time, let's use me and my wife the first time, right? When I first met her and I started dating her and everything, I was like, you know, how can a nice girl like you be single? Typical question. But what I didn't know was what happened between her and her ex. And it was like, okay, shoot, so if this happened between her and her ex, what am I gonna do different so we don't end up in a similar position? You know, and most times, because we avoid asking these, and we start losing our heads in the joy of meeting someone, in the joy of, we forget that little things start seeping through, you know, from when they're okay with you, with not seeing you this weekend because you got friends over, to, what, you're not gonna see me this weekend? Are you serious? Is that how it's gonna be? Bye. Already, guess what? They don't have to hit you. Already it's hitting your head. Have I just made them second best? Have I, right? Wait, hold on, what's changing here? Because when you first met me, you were happy and you were fine, because you know what? You kind of missed me. Wait, am I creating that? Does she not? Wait, but this is, do you understand? It starts seeping in that way, but you know what? The ones that receive it, okay, will receive it very differently. They'll be like, you know, I don't want them to feel like that about me. And then the question we forgot to ask about their last relationship seeps in. Shoot, something like this subconsciously happened before. So do you know what? Forget about these guys. Let me go forward for them and do everything for them.
But do you really think that I'm going to argue a bit now about this, because I don't necessarily feel that we need to know everything about that person by asking questions. I just feel if you give it time, you can see for yourself. That's just my opinion. I think the problem is many people rush into things too quickly. I believe friendship first. You build the foundation. Your friends, you know them as a friend and you know what you're getting yourself into. But if you're rushing it, you're running before you're even walking.
But how long should a friendship be before it turns into that intimate type of it?
I don't think there's a time limit. I think if it just happens, it happens.
I think you've got certain requirements from people that you want to end up with, whether it's a friend, family, or within a relationship. If people don't meet your expectations, the earlier on you find out, the better it is for me.
So you think you should ask questions?
No, not really. I just experience people, see what they're about, and then even in the smallest things that people do, sometimes it tells a lot about a person. Do you get it? So sometimes when you meet, you're speaking about a relationship now, you ask, how come you guys broke up after 6 years? You hear them saying, things that I could have known after 5 months of meeting him, when this and this and that happened, occurred all the time, and then I just stayed with that person. So for me, it's all about, in the beginning, I'm transparent. I'm going to tell you this about me and that about me, whether you're a friend or you're working with me, you can be a customer. This is what I'm about. Are you about the same, yes or no? And otherwise we go our separate ways and no hard feelings.
But how
early?
How early are you talking about finding out where the abuse kicks in?
You just got to know yourself. As long as you're true to yourself and you know yourself, when people, like nowadays, society's changing, things are changing, right? Yeah. So when you meet someone, you know that I've got a connection with you and that's it. And I personally keep my circle small because of that reason. Because we're just not aligned when it comes to certain things. You could be an acquaintance, you can be, we can speak together, I can say hello to you, but you don't have to be in my close circle because I know what I'm about. And if you're not about the same, I'm really sorry. So for me, I would always avoid domestic abuse and things like that anyways in the first place. Because I know myself, those people don't know themselves fully. So as long as you don't get to know yourself, you're going to fall back into domestic abuse. You're going to abuse someone else and then it's like a domino effect to the other people that you're going to meet, I think, until you get to know yourself and better yourself.
I honestly hear you. You've raised some really vital points there. However, as a woman, okay, and I actually speak of experience before I speak of anything else. And sort of looking back 30 or 40 years ago when I was like in my prime, okay.
I'm still up.
Thank you for that, in my prime, love it. Raising 3 small children in a very abusive relationship, okay, at that time of my life, I felt I was never going to get out of it. People often say, even me as a professional, used to think to myself, so why have you stayed so long? That little letter, that little word we call love and emotions. Sometimes we get blinded to that little emotion that has feelings, and sometimes we allow the feelings to take over. Sometimes the man might be full of SHIT, she might be full of SHIT, but the sex is wicked. And some people hang on for the sex. Seriously, but it's the wrong reason. And that's why I say, do people believe in make-up sex or not? There you go, another ball game. Because if someone's just smashed you in the face, in the home, smashed the plates, the kids are crying, and again, not allowing you to go to the kids, that's another side of abuse again, the impact of our children, okay? At that moment, at that time, I guess my partner, your partner, anyone who's experiencing it, not thinking of that.
Of course.
Not at that time, not at the point when the abuse is actually happening. So, for me personally, going back to the question, really, the classical one is, had I known then what I know now? And that's why so many of us are passionate about raising awareness.
Because sometimes you just, I'm going to say as well, because sometimes you just don't know, like as I said, I always thought it was physical. So I always knew that growing up, I would never want to experience being with a partner who was physically abusive to me. So I always avoided, well, I felt like I always avoided that, and I've been quite lucky to avoid that. But I have experienced emotional abuse and I didn't even realise. So it's mad because there were certain behaviours that they were doing with me and I didn't even realise. I just thought, I suppose maybe I was naive to it. You know, I just thought, and I'll give you a little example because I actually put this meme up the other day on my Instagram talking about people that use silent treatment. Now, I used to just think, I'm not even going to lie to you, I actually even used to be that person back in the days. If I had an issue, I would never talk on it, I would just give you a silent treatment, yeah? And then I kind of grew out of it anyway as I got older. And then I ended up meeting somebody who I was dating, and he would just start giving me the silent treatment. I'd done nothing wrong, just literally.
So you got back your own medicine, basically.
Pardon?
You got back your own
I probably did, yeah.
He ghosted sometimes, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Like, you speak to him for like a couple of days, that's it?
No.
Like ghosted, like he was not.
Yeah, it is like ghosting, yeah. It is.
So not after an argument or nothing like that?
No,
Just suddenly, all of a sudden.
Suddenly.
Okay.
And the thing is, when it first happened
Why?
a few times, no,
Why?
when it first happened,
It's long gone, right?
That's a strange behaviour to me.
when it happened the first few times,
yeah.
I didn't like, I don't know, maybe for me I just thought, maybe he's not in a good mood, or, you know, it happened a couple of times. It didn't happen all the time. It was here and there, it was very sporadic. It wasn't, if it was all the time, I'd have been, I ain't got time for this. But it was like every now and again.
Process, yeah.
But where I knew that there was something not working out for me, what wasn't right, was one time he messaged me, then I messaged back, and then he ignored me.
You live on blue. Red,
Forget even blue or red or whatever, or double tick
The
or...
notification was turned off.
You know, thank God for social media, you know, because this is all new to me. In my days, we just didn't see him.
Well, yes, you know.
Files
Domestic abuse can basically come in different ways.
Well,
it could be weird things. It could be anything. Right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, no. What I'm just expressing is that I didn't even realise this person was creating domestic abuse for me. I didn't even know. It was because it was subtle.
Yeah.
It wasn't blatant. It wasn't, you know, saying nasty things. He was always respectful to me, always nice to me. Yeah. And then it was an ego thing. So it was like, I'll give you an example. Like, he would message me, and then I'd message back. He'd be like, hi. I'd message back, then he would ignore me. Then he would change his DP.
Okay.
Unbelievable.
So it's like, you know, it's like an attention, it's an ego thing. And then I ended up realising that I was dating a narcissist.
Ooh,
that's tough one.
Yeah, that's deep.
Okay.
Yeah, a narcissist.
And
a narcissist is somebody who basically uses silent treatment as a form of control. He was trying to, because he couldn't, you see with me, I've got very strong character. But it's the truth. A lot of guys find it hard to control me in the normal way. So it's almost like he found a subtle way of controlling me. And I didn't even realise it was his way of controlling me. But it was like, so what they do is it kind of like boosts their ego. So I'll give you like a brief explanation of what it is. So they're charming, they come along, they tell you all the right things. They make you feel like, you know, you're the most important person
which you
on this.
Be feeling that way anyway.
Exactly. So which you think is pretty normal. You don't think anything, and then it's like a few months in, that's then when they start shutting certain things down, and then it's like as well, if you're not giving them that attention, because I'm a sort of person that I will give out compliments. Naturally, that's the kind of person that I am, and it's like then when I wasn't giving that. It was then like he was doing certain things to get my attention, but in a negative way. But anyway, cut the long story short, I ended up realising that I was dating a narcissist, and actually, it caused a knock-on effect on my self-esteem and confidence, and I didn't even realise.
Yeah. I personally haven't been through it, but I can imagine if you've got kids on top of that, then it just turns into like that effect is just way stronger, because you could just end, like me personally, I'm not married or anything yet, so I haven't been through that domestic abuse that you, like some of you might be familiar with, but I can imagine once you've got kids on top of that, that's when it gets really difficult. I wouldn't personally even know what you would go through then, because I've seen, for example, I'm a barber here, I see customers, they tell me about stories where they broke up with someone, and through the kids she's been getting, you know, what would you call it? Sorry. Custody over the kid, and he can't see her. He can only see it once in 2 weeks. Comes in upset. This is that court case, blah blah blah. So it can turn really
nasty.
Yeah.
And I deal with those families out there who live in proof of when it goes bad, it can go extremely bad. And you've just described about being a grown man, and you know, your only sort of recollection of abuse is listening to someone like ourselves or the media and someone else telling you about it, because even as a child growing up, you're describing to me that you didn't see that even as a child from mum and dad if you grew with your parents. Now, I grew with my parents in this country in the early 60s, early 70s, and to this day, you know, it was death that parted them both, 57 years, okay?
Exactly.
And not once, okay, not once in the 57 years before my dad left first for a day, did he ever hit my mum. You know, Jamaicans have a way where they say, you know, teeth and tongue must meet. You know, there's going to be times when you're not too happy with what your partner or your spouse is saying, vice versa. But there's something else I've learned as well, you know, from my husband. He often speaks about, as professionals, he says, babes, we sometimes don't do, you know, practice what you preach. As professionals out there, he says to me, sometimes, you know, if you're out there, babes, and suddenly one of the clients, as they do, they're in your face, you know, and when you work in the front line in this sort of really sort of sensitive area, you are open to all sorts, okay? And as a professional, let's face it, if somebody comes in and says to me, oh, Salassi, you're full of S-H-I-T today, or bend down, whatever, I have to deal with that in such a way that it just shows resilience. Because I really can't be seen as a professional to say, we're there, what? Can't do that, okay? And I guess the point I'm trying to say here is in our relationships sometimes, we need to just, it's easier said than done, being there, done it, also have a t-shirt. But even today as a grown woman, you know, happy married woman, you know, not every day is a happy day. And some days may not be how I want it to be. But believe you me, if there's an argument, me and my husband, we try to not diffuse the argument in a way that it festers.
Yeah, agree.
I'm stubborn, and you're another Aries lady. You're stubborn.
I'm a Taurian.
Okay, you're behind.
Very
And sometimes, you know, our characters, you know, my mum often said I was very stubborn, I can be very disobedient, and I think somewhere along the line that's part of my character. So within my relationship, especially if I have a man who is kind of like a strong man, and I don't always mean in terms of physical, a strong man, a man that is worthy of being a man, he really has a hard time dealing with Salassi. Because, but I think we've learned how, well, you need to learn how to communicate. My husband says communication is the key. And going back to the point I made about with, you know, when we're with clients, I'm thinking, hell you, because you know what I mean? But it's so true. Just take that little time to think, what I'm going to say to my husband or my partner, I know it's going to cause an effect on him, but you know what? Let's hope that we can agree to disagree. The last thing I want to know is that because I've expressed my views or given you my opinion, you're going to be boxing me up. You're going to be taking me down that road, making me feel like I have no rights. You're going to want me to disrespect me, making me feel that I don't have no motive to why I feel the way I feel. That's when it's gone over the board. So there are so many different areas of domestic abuse that, you know, the violence doesn't even have to come to it. You know, I recently worked with a lady who said to me, I'm out of that marriage now, and I'll never ever miss the abuse. But what I am going to miss is him washing my underwear.
That's crazy.
We laugh.
That's crazy.
We laugh, okay? This is so serious, and like yourself, I'm a very outgoing, bubbly individual for those who know me. And I must admit, when Sev actually invited me on the program, I thought, wow, this is really something I'd like to express. I'm not so brilliant in relationships as a counsellor. I wouldn't say that's what I do, but I've been in relationships and I've sustained relationships long enough, as well as my professional years, to know that when it's good, it's good. And when it's not so good, recognize when it's not so good.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay?
And yeah, sorry, just to back you up on that one, right? Okay, I'm someone, right, who I've probably taken a few licks in the short time I've been on this planet, right? Hit me, I'll get over it. Push me, I'll fall, I'll get back up. Do whatever you want to me. I will bounce back from everything. But I kid you not, the girl that put her hand on my shoulder and told me, wow, you're so short and cute, I still remember that girl. Do you understand? To the point I'm still dying to drive past her so I can splash water on her. Okay? The reason being, that scar that she's left, it's not printed here that I can, you know, show off with or anything, right? It's printed here.
Left up there.
And I think when it comes to domestic abuse, okay, or relationships as a whole, okay, there's always going to be arguments, okay? And I try not to use the term arguments. I like to say discussions that can get heated. The reason I say is that according to what someone a bit mature advised me, they said to me, there's a few times you're going to be very, very honest, okay? Or maybe a bit too honest. And one of them is when you're angry.
When you're angry.
When you're angry, you might be a bit too honest, okay? And most times I've noticed from past experiences, I don't lose my temper very easily. No, you gotta push me for a very, very, very long time for me to lose my temper. But I noticed that in past relationships, for some weird reason, they could lose their temper. They could say certain things and they could go on with it. But when I hit them with facts, it became a problem where they became the victims. So to the point that you can't even express yourself or anything, but the words that they were using towards you, it creates so much. Like whenever anyone talks to me about domestic abuse or, you know, ask anything, look, I'm from a single parent family, right? Okay. I was 2 when my dad left. But the stories I hear that happened, okay, I sit there and I think, and I look at my mom. I literally look at her. Even till now, I look at her and I sit there and I go, she never married again. She never wanted to be with another man again. Okay, the reason being, okay, and hopefully when she sees it, she don't get upset with me. But the reason being, yes, she's biblical. But secondly, I don't think there was anyone else who could erase the damage that, not physical, the words that were left in her. Those words are so important, you know, to the point that I have learned over the years that when you're speaking to people, don't think they're just hearing you, they're listening. And when someone hears what you're saying, and you're a parent, when they hear what you're saying, they probably don't do what they're supposed to do. When they listen to what you're saying, they do it.
As you should say that, you know, my granddaughter often, she's 7 years old, Adeja. Hi, Grandma's mentioning you, Adeja. You know, it's a case where she's trying to speak to me, and you know what we're doing, I'm multitasking, I'm trying to do everything. And then she'll turn around and say, Grandma, you're just not listening. And I'm thinking, listen to you. You know, so she actually knows the difference.
Exactly.
Yes, you can hear me, Grandma, but are you really listening?
Exactly. And that's what happens most times within, you know, domestic abuse. You know, one of them is actively listening, and the other one is just hearing it and ignoring it. And that's what I said to you, it's so tough, because this topic in particular is about the giver and the receiver. And it's like solving the quest of whether God exists or not. Okay, where did they receive it from to be able to deliver? And where did they find the need to receive it? Like, how do you get to that point?
I think though you attract what you feel though, isn't it? There's a
not necessarily, because you know, I know good people.
Exactly.
I know good people
Exactly.
that they don't keep choosing, they keep being sold.
Yeah, exactly. You attract
Do you
what you feel.
understand?
Because if I'm feeling vulnerable, I'm sorry guys, I have to get involved. If I'm feeling vulnerable, yeah, and the reason why I can talk on this is because the time that I was dating that person who was a narcissist, it's what I needed. That sounds so crazy.
To kickstart you?
No, it was like almost like it fueled me in some sort of weird way, because it was like I attracted what I was feeling.
Dominance, maybe, no?
Okay.
Maybe,
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't put my finger on it because there's something I'm still trying to work
out.
out. But I do just feel that if you're feeling vulnerable, and then you've got someone that comes along, and as you said, tells you all the nice things that you want to hear, and then then I become the receiver, he becomes the giver, then it's like we're a match almost. It might not seem like a fair match, but we are a match. I want the attention, shall I say, or I want to give the attention maybe, he wants to receive, whatever, but we've kind of come as a match, we've aligned together for one reason or another, we have come together. I don't believe that, I'm not saying that, I obviously have to be very careful how I'm saying this. I'm not saying that everybody that goes through it deserves it, because I don't mean that at all, because I know a lot of people that have gone through it, and of course they don't deserve it. But at that moment in time, maybe they were just vulnerable. They were looking for love in all the wrong places, and that's what I feel it comes down to.
Let me tell you something, right? There's something. Okay, so I believe there's power in everything you say, right? Okay, when I was growing up, right? Okay, and I used to say, oh, I want to fall in love, and everything, right? This one's gonna hit you, okay? Because falling in love comes with everything that falls, okay? When you rise in love, it's a different thing, okay? So after my last relationship, which ended up not good, it was not good, okay? I'm a sucker for love. Seriously, sucker for love. I believe in flowers every 2 weeks because it's gonna die. I believe in let's go for dinners. I believe in all that stuff. I also messaged my missus and I'm like, yo, babe, is it right if I link you this weekend? I live with you. For goodness sake. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm that guy.
I love that.
Do you understand?
I love that.
That's how I'm like.
Definitely, yes.
So when you're in a relationship like that, I'll tell you what. Here's the flip, right? I do that all the time. It becomes an expectation.
100%.
All right, carry on. I'll tell you. Carry on.
It becomes an expectation, right? And then when you don't do that anymore, because of something, okay, it's like it's now flipped onto you as though, are you good enough? Are you not good enough? You start thinking, wait, hold on. I said I love you like 10 minutes ago, but right now, does it make sense? My wife doesn't do it. My wife's pretty good, right? Okay, all right. This is what I picked up from my last relationship. So I was like, you know what? For me to enter into any other relationship, it's either I'm gonna rise in love or I'm gonna fall in love.
I hear you.
Do you understand me? And that mentality kind of created like this invisible armor around me, where I met loads of girls. Okay, in my circle, there's loads and loads of girls. But you know what? It gives you that thing where you gotta speak your mind straight away. You gotta tell. I used to meet a girl and I'll tell her on the first date. So actually, I'm looking to settle down. I wanna have kids. I wanna have this. And they'll freak out straight away. I'm like, whoa, why are you freaking out?
Too much. Too soon.
When I first met you, you said to me, I'm a good girl. I want to settle down. So now I'm hitting you with it. So why are you backing off? Automatically, what that tells me is that I've got a lot of unexpected little things that are about to hit me that I need to straight away know. Or I'll meet a girl and I'll tell her I'm taking you on a date just to suss them out. And I'll literally walk with them past a McDonald's. We'll go get a milkshake and let's continue walking.
Okay.
Do you know what I want? I just wanted to hear and see the gratitude and see whether they appreciate it. Because
McDonald's.
Not just McDonald's, it's the gesture.
Yeah.
Because the gesture tells you, okay, this is where I am now. Let's work together to get to the next bit. If they at that point go, McDonald's, to me that's abusive. You don't know what's in my bank account. But I'm a good guy. I'm giving you time. I thought time was precious. So if you don't appreciate my time, there's a lot of things that are about to follow.
I think the abuse thing comes with lack of morals as well.
There you go.
So it always stems from something. So some people might have been through something during childhood, and that's affected a long-term relationship.
That's it.
So the root of that domestic abuse could then be maybe that girl that wanted so much from that date is because her dad didn't have anything, or do you know what I'm trying to say? So
it's a big point. It's a big point.
So eventually, then it's about, is it for you then as the man? So you're the receiver, right? In this situation, is that for me or is that not for me, right? And then you gotta filter out that process.
So we've come to the end now. If you guys would like a part 2 to this discussion, then let me know. DM me, so it's Instagram Turkish_podcast, or message me on YouTube. Let me know, give me feedback if you would like it to go on a bit more, because you know we have been given a lot of powerful content.
We also got carried away.
Yeah, it's been powerful.
All right, guys, thank you very much for tuning in. I know it's a very, very serious topic, but whoever is going through something like that, do get in touch. You know, you met my sisters here. You know, Salassi is available, Turkish Delight Podcast, hit her up. And if you need to message me as well, I'm on Instagram, boss_0487. And, you know, I hope everyone who's receiving or anyone who's going through something like that, stay strong and keep pushing forward.
Just as we're wrapping up to the end of this very vital, crucial topic, I'd just like to say, look out for my webpage, which is Instagram under Salassi Williams, where I'm now starting to do my bit to raise awareness around domestic violence.
As you heard, domestic abuse can be a very negative thing, and for me the most important way to tackle this is to maybe share your feelings, communicate a bit more. So whether that's towards each other within a relationship, whether it's towards your family, your brothers and sisters, communication is key. And even when you do go through mental abuse or any type of domestic abuse, make sure you share it with the world. Yeah, come for a trim, come for a haircut, and sit down with us and talk about it. You know, that's how you should deal with it. Express yourself. So whatever negative energy you're getting, make sure you're expressing it.
I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I thought that would be really important to bring you something a bit different, a bit more serious, because I think domestic abuse is something that is not really touched upon, especially like in the younger society. So I really hope that you can take something from this, because even like someone like myself, I didn't even know that there was different forms. I just thought domestic abuse was just, if they're hitting me, then it's abuse. Well, no. There's emotional and there's financial, and that's something you also got to look out for. Is a guy giving you money and then using the money against you? Is it that, you know, he's doing what happened to me? Using the whole ghosting and coming back and ghosting and coming back. That's also another form of emotional abuse. So you just need to kind of, you know, as long as you're aware, then you can kind of look out for the signs. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it.
It could all be so simple, but you'd rather make it hard.